At the family party, my parents mocked me. To the one who always show up without money and still hopes to be seen as somebody. Everyone laughed. I lifted my glass and said, "All right, the broke one will stop paying." Then I walked away. 1 week later, the creditors showed up. I still remember the weight of that champagne flute in my hand. Cool, delicate, almost fragile. The kind of glass that costs more than most people spend on groceries in a week. My mother had ordered them specially for the party, along with the ice sculptures and the string quartet, and the imported oysters that nobody really wanted, but everyone pretended to appreciate. It was her 60th birthday, and she'd made it clear that this wasn't just a celebration. It was a showcase. The backyard had been transformed into something out of a magazine spread. White tents with gossamer draping, Edison bulbs, strung like constellations, tables dressed in cream linen with centerpieces of peonies and roses that probably cost what I used to make in a month when I first started working. Everything was perfect. Everything was expensive. Everything was exactly what my mother wanted. And I had paid for most of it. But nobody knew that. Nobody was supposed to know that. I stood at the edge of the gathering, watching my family move through the space like they owned it. Which, in their minds, they did. My father held court near the bar, his voice booming as he told some story about a business deal he'd closed 30 years ago. The same story he always told, with the same self-satisfied laugh at the end. My brother Marcus leaned against one of the tent poles, his wife Ashley draped on his arm like an accessory, both of them scrolling through their phones with the practiced disinterest of people who'd never had to work for anything. My sister Diane was near the dessert table, her twins running circles around the guests while she sipped Prosecco and complained loudly about how hard it was to find good help these days. Her husband wasn't there. He was never there, always traveling for work, or at least that's what she said. I suspected he just preferred being anywhere else. And then there was me, Camille, the youngest, the quiet one, the one who, according to family legend, never quite lived up to potential. I wore a simple black dress, elegant but understated, the kind of thing that wouldn't draw attention. I'd learned a long time ago that being invisible was safer than being seen. My hair was pulled back in a low bun. No jewelry, except for small diamond studs that had belonged to my grandmother. I looked like what I was supposed to look like. Present but not prominent. Family but not quite equal. The irony was almost poetic. "More champagne, miss?" A server appeared at my elbow, young and nervous, probably working his first high-end event. I recognized the look, the careful politeness, the fear of making a mistake. I'd worn that expression myself once, years ago, when I was just starting out, and every interaction felt like a test I might fail. "No, thank you," I said softly. "I'm fine." He nodded and moved away, and I went back to my observation post, watching the performance unfold. Because that's what this was. A performance. My family excelled at performances. They could play the roles of successful, sophisticated people with such conviction that even they believed it. The sun was starting to set, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. The string quartet shifted into something classical and vaguely romantic. My mother stood near the center of everything, accepting compliments about the party, about her dress, about how she didn't look a day over 40. She glowed under the attention, soaking it in like sunlight. My father caught my eye from across the yard and gestured for me to come over. My stomach tightened. That involuntary response I'd never quite managed to eliminate. No matter how many years passed, or how much therapy I sat through. When your father summons you, some ancient part of your brain still responds with the alertness of prey. I crossed the lawn carefully, my heels sinking slightly into the grass with each step. The crowd had grown larger as the evening progressed. Aunts, uncles, cousins, family friends, business associates, people I barely recognized but who all seemed to know exactly who I was and exactly where I ranked in the family hierarchy. "Camille?" My father's voice carried that particular tone he used when he wanted everyone to pay attention. "Come here, sweetheart. We're about to do the toast." Sweetheart. He only called me that in public, when there were people watching. In private, I was usually Camille at best, or nothing at all. I approached the assembled group. My mother had positioned herself on a slight rise near the center tent, where everyone could see her. My father stood beside her, Marcus and Ashley flanking them like bookends. Diane had corralled her twins and was holding them by their shoulders, creating the picture of a perfect young family. Someone had arranged this tableau carefully. Probably my mother. She understood staging. I found myself standing slightly apart from them, not quite in the family portrait, but close enough to be included in the frame. It was a position I knew well. My father raised his glass. The crowd quieted. Even the string quartet softened to a background murmur. "Friends, family, honored guests," he began, his voice rich with the practiced warmth of someone who'd given 1,000 speeches. "We're here tonight to celebrate a remarkable woman. My wife, Linda, turns 60 today, though looking at her, you'd never believe it." Polite laughter. My mother smiled, touching her hair with one hand in a gesture of feigned modesty. "Linda and I have built a beautiful life together." My father continued. "We've raised 3 children, built a successful business, created a legacy we're proud of. We've worked hard for everything we have, and tonight, surrounded by the people we love, we get to enjoy the fruits of that labor." More nods, more smiles. I noticed Marcus whisper something to Ashley, who giggled quietly. Diane was checking her phone. "Now, I know my kids want to say a few words," my father said, gesturing expansively. "Marcus, why don't you start?" My brother stepped forward with the easy confidence of someone who'd never been told no. He raised his glass and launched into a speech about our mother's dedication, her style, her unwavering support of the family. It was smooth and rehearsed, the kind of thing he'd probably prepared with Ashley over brunch that morning. Everyone applauded when he finished. Diane went next, her speech slightly more chaotic but equally effusive, praising our mother's strength and sophistication, making jokes about how she hoped to age as gracefully, how she wanted to be exactly like Mom when she reached 60. More applause, more approving nods. Then my father turned to me. "Camille, would you like to say something?" The way he phrased it, "would you like to, not will you," gave me the option to decline. I could have shaken my head, raised my glass, silently, let the moment pass. That's what the old Camille would have done. The invisible one. The one who understood her place. But something had shifted in me over the past few months. Maybe it was the weight of all the secrets I'd been carrying. Maybe it was the exhaustion of playing a role that no longer fit. Maybe it was simply that I'd reached some internal threshold I hadn't known existed until I crossed it. Sure, I said quietly. I'd like to say something. I stepped forward, and for a moment, I felt every eye in that backyard turn toward me. It was an unfamiliar sensation, being seen, really seen, by this crowd that had spent years looking past me. I raised my glass. The champagne caught the light, golden and effervescent. "Mum, Dad," I began, my voice steady despite the racing of my heart. "Marcus, Diane, everyone here tonight." I paused, letting the silence settle. "I want to thank you all for being here to celebrate this milestone. These kinds of gatherings, they show us who we really are, don't they? What we value, what we choose to see, and what we choose to overlook." My mother's smile had frozen slightly. My father was watching me with that particular intensity he got when he sensed something veering off script. "I've spent a lot of years being quiet at these family events," I continued. "Listening, observing, being present but not prominent. And I've learned so much from that position. About generosity, about sacrifice, about what it means to show up for the people you love, even when they don't notice, even when they don't ask, even when they I stopped myself. This wasn't the time, not yet. What I want to say is this. I hope you all enjoy tonight. The food, the music, the beautiful Oswald setting. All of it. Every detail that went into making this evening special. Every element that came together to create this perfect moment." I lifted my glass higher. "To Mum. Happy birthday. May you always have exactly what you deserve." The last sentence landed with a weight that I felt more than heard. A few people looked confused, unsure if there was a hidden meaning they'd missed. Most just smiled and raised their glasses, ready to move past the awkward moment when the quiet daughter tried to be eloquent. I drank. The champagne was expensive. I knew because I'd paid for it. It tasted like regret. I was turning to slip back into the crowd when my father's voice stopped me. "Well, that was cryptic, Camille." He laughed, that booming laugh designed to deflate tension. "Leave it to our youngest to get philosophical at a birthday party." A few people chuckled. My mother had recovered her composure and was smiling again, though her eyes held something sharper now, a wariness, a question. "You know what I love about Camille?" My father continued, addressing the crowd now, not me. "She's always been the dreamer of the family, the creative one, the one with her head in the clouds, while the rest of us were building something real." My stomach contracted. I knew where this was going. I'd heard variations of this speech my entire life. "Marcus here." My father gestured to my brother. He joined the family business right out of college. Helped me expand into 3 new markets. Diane's been incredible too, raising those beautiful kids while managing her charity work. They've both shown what it means to be part of this family, what it takes to contribute. The word contribute hung in the air like smoke. "But Camille," he continued, his voice taking on that particular tone of affectionate condescension. "She's always marched to her own drummer. Jobs here and there, nothing that stuck. Always talking about her plans and her opportunities. And you know what? That's okay. Not everyone can be a go-getter. Some people need to find themselves first. I felt my face growing warm. Around me, I could sense the crowd's attention sharpening, picking up on the shift in tone. This was no longer a toast. This was something else. The thing is, my father went on, we've always supported Camille. Always. When she needed money for this venture or that course, we were there. When her little projects didn't pan out, we picked up the slack. Because that's what family does. We take care of our own, even the ones who... He paused, searching for the words. Even the ones who can't quite seem to take care of themselves. The silence that followed was excruciating. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat, my fingertips, behind my eyes. A few people shifted uncomfortably. Most were watching with the detached interest of spectators at an accident. My mother, sensing the need to smooth things over, added with a light laugh, "What your father means is that we love all our children equally, no matter where they are in life. Camille's still young, still finding her way. And we're proud of her for trying, aren't we, darling?" The "aren't we, darling" was directed at my father, a gentle attempt to rein him in. But my father was just getting started. I could see it in his eyes. That particular gleam he got when he'd had just enough to drink to lose his filter, but not enough to lose his coherence. It's the dangerous zone. "I'll tell you what's funny, though," he said, and I knew what was coming next. Tonight, Camille here, our dreamer, our wanderer, she shows up to her mother's 60th birthday party. Looking lovely, I might add. Very put together. But do you know what she brought as a gift? He paused for effect. Nothing. Not a card. Not a bottle of wine. Nothing. That wasn't true. I'd given my mother a gift. A first edition book of poetry by her favorite author. Something I'd spent 3 months tracking down through rare book dealers. I'd handed it to her when I arrived before the guests showed up. She'd smiled absently, set it aside, and immediately started fussing about the placement of the centerpieces. But pointing that out now would only make things worse. "And you know," my father continued, warming to his theme, "that's kind of perfect, actually. Because it's very Camille, show up, be present, let other people handle the heavy lifting. Let other people foot the bill while you..." He waved his hand vaguely. "While you figure yourself out." Marcus was grinning now. Ashley had her hand over her mouth, trying to suppress a smile. Diane was watching with that particular expression of someone grateful that they weren't the target of attention. My mother touched my father's arm. "Robert, that's enough." But it wasn't enough, not for him. "I'm just saying." My father pressed on, his voice rising slightly, carrying across the lawn to every corner of the gathering. "We have a tradition in this family of hard work, of earning what you have, of contributing. And then there are people who just coast, who show up expecting to be treated like equals when they haven't put in the work. When they haven't what?" I heard myself say. My voice was quiet, but something in it cut through his momentum. He stopped, turned to look at me fully. "Excuse me?" "I'm just wondering what you were going to say," I said, my voice still calm, still controlled. "When they haven't what, exactly?" My father's face flushed. "When they haven't earned it, Camille. When they show up to a party like this, empty-handed, expecting to be celebrated alongside people who've actually built something. People who've actually contributed?" I supplied. "Yes, contributed." The word again. That word they loved to use. Contributed. I looked at my father, at my mother, at Marcus and Diane, and all the assembled guests who were watching this family drama unfold with varying degrees of discomfort and fascination. And something inside me, something that had been bending for years, finally snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a clean break, like a wishbone pulled in two. "You're right," I said softly. "You're absolutely right." My father looked momentarily confused, as if he'd been bracing for an argument and wasn't sure what to do with agreement. "I haven't contributed," I continued. "Not in any way that counts. Not in any way you'd notice. I've just been showing up, being here, being family, without bringing anything to the table." "Camille," my mother started, but I shook my head. "No, it's okay, Mom. Dad's making a good point. Let him finish. Please." I gestured to my father. "Go ahead. What were you going to toast to?" He hesitated, then seemed to recover his momentum. He raised his glass again, and I saw the moment he decided to lean into it, to make the joke complete. "All right then," he said, his voice taking on that jovial, teasing tone that made everything that followed feel like good-natured ribbing even when it wasn't. "Let's make this official. A toast." He paused, timing it perfectly. "To the one who always shows up without money and still hopes to be seen as somebody." The laughter started immediately. Not from everyone. Some people looked genuinely uncomfortable, but from enough. Marcus laughed openly. Ashley covered her mouth again, her shoulders shaking. A few of my father's business associates chuckled. That knowing chuckle of men who'd probably made similar jokes about their own disappointing children. Diane wasn't laughing, but she wasn't defending me either. She just looked away, focusing on her twins. My mother's expression was complex. Part embarrassment, part resignation, part something I couldn't quite read. But she didn't stop him. She never stopped him. I stood there, glass still raised, feeling the weight of that moment settle over me like a physical thing. The laughter continued, rolling through the crowd in waves. Someone whooped. Someone else said something I couldn't quite hear that prompted another burst of amusement. And I thought about all of it. Everything that had led to this moment. The mortgage on this house that I'd been quietly paying for 3 years. The business loans I'd co-signed when my father's company hit rough patches. The credit cards in my name that Marcus had maxed out and never paid back. The medical bills for my mother's cosmetic procedures that somehow always ended up in my mailbox. The college tuition for Diane's twins that I'd been covering through a trust they didn't know existed. I thought about the spreadsheets I kept, meticulously tracking every dollar, every transaction, every silent contribution to the family that had spent 28 years telling me I contributed nothing. I thought about the silence I'd maintained, the invisibility I'd cultivated, the way I'd let them believe I was struggling when I'd actually built something they couldn't even imagine. I thought about the phone calls from creditors that I'd intercepted, the collection notices I'd paid off, the bankruptcy filings I'd prevented, the financial catastrophes I'd averted while they threw parties and bought luxury cars and lived like the money would never run out. Because they thought it wouldn't. They thought there was an infinite well of resources, some magical source that kept everything flowing. They never asked where it came from. They never thought to wonder. They just assumed. They just took. They just kept living their beautiful, expensive lives while looking down on me for not having figured out how to live mine. The laughter was fading now. People turning back to their conversations, ready to move on to the next moment, the next drink, the next piece of gossip. My father was grinning, pleased with himself. My mother was already greeting another guest, the awkward moment forgotten. I lifted my glass higher. "All right then," I said, my voice cutting through the ambient noise with unexpected clarity. People turned back to me. My father's grin faltered slightly. "All right," I repeated. "You're absolutely right. I haven't contributed enough. I've been showing up empty-handed, taking up space, being the brokey one who wants to be seen as somebody." I paused, letting each word land with intention. "So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop showing up empty-handed. I'm going to stop being the one who takes without giving." My father's expression shifted to confusion. My mother had stopped mid-conversation. "The broke one," I said slowly, deliberately, "will stop paying." For a moment, nobody moved. The words hung there, strange and out of context, not quite making sense. My father laughed uncertainly. "Stop paying, Kamezi. What are you talking about?" But I didn't answer. I simply drank the last of my champagne, set the empty glass on a nearby table, and turned toward the house. "Camille?" my mother called after me. "Where are you going?" "Home," I said, without looking back. "I have some calls to make." I walked through that crowd of people. People who'd just laughed at me. People who'd watched me be humiliated and found it entertaining, with my head up and my shoulders back. I walked through the house I'd been paying for, past the furniture I'd helped purchase, under the chandelier I'd had installed when the old one broke. I walked out the front door, got into my car, a modest sedan, nothing flashy, because I'd learned that invisibility had its advantages, and drove away from that party, from that family, from that entire performance. And as I drove, the sun setting behind me and the road opening up ahead, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt free, but I also felt something else, something sharper, more focused. I felt like I had work to do. The first call came on Monday morning. I was in my office, not the cramped apartment they imagined I lived in, but the corner office on the 23rd floor of downtown's most prestigious building, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city and artwork on the walls that most people only saw in museums. I was reviewing quarterly reports when my assistant James buzzed through. "Your mother on line 2. She's called 3 times already this morning." I glanced at my watch. 9:47 a.m. She'd lasted longer than I expected. "Tell her I'm in a meeting." "She says it's urgent." "Everything's urgent to my mother, James. Take a message." There was a pause. James had worked for me long enough to know when not to push. "Of course." I went back to my reports. By noon, I had 17 missed calls. 8 from my mother, 4 from my father, 3 from Marcus, 2 from Diane. I deleted the voicemails without listening to them. I knew what they said anyway. I'd been planning for this moment for months, carefully choreographing every detail, and I knew exactly how it would unfold. The mortgage payment had been due on Friday. I hadn't made it. For the first time in 3 years, the money hadn't magically appeared in my father's account on the first of the month. The bank would have sent a notice. My father would have assumed it was a mistake and some glitch in their system. He would have called the bank, been told that no payment had been received, and that according to their records, the account the payments had been coming from, an account he didn't even know existed, had been closed. That would have been confusing enough. But then the other notices would have started arriving. The business loan payment, also missed. The credit card minimum payments, all of them, across 5 different cards, also missed. The property tax payment that was due last week, you guessed it. By Monday morning, my family would have been drowning in red notices and automated calls and the creeping sense that something was very, very wrong. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "What the fuck did you do?" I smiled and set the phone face down on my desk. What had I done? I'd stopped. I'd simply stopped doing what I'd been doing silently for years. I'd withdrawn my financial support and let reality rush in to fill the vacuum. It was amazing, really, how quickly things unraveled when you pulled out the single thread that had been holding everything together. Tuesday morning brought a new wave of contact attempts. My father left a voicemail that James transcribed for me. "Camille, I don't know what kind of stunt you're pulling, but you need to call me back immediately. We need to talk about this situation. Whatever this is, call me." The word situation made me laugh, as if this was some temporary inconvenience, some minor miscommunication that could be cleared up with a phone call. Wednesday, my mother showed up at my apartment. Or rather, at the address they thought was my apartment. A modest, 1-bedroom, in a decent but not impressive neighborhood, a place I rented under my name but had never actually lived in. I kept it maintained, kept mail going there, kept up the illusion of the struggling daughter making ends meet. The superintendent called me. "Miss Chen, your mother's here. She seems pretty upset. Should I let her in, or—" "No," I said calmly. "Tell her I'm not home. Tell her you haven't seen me in a few days. She's asking when you usually come home. Tell her you don't keep track of tenants' schedules." There was a pause. "This is that thing you mentioned might happen, isn't it?" "Yes, Miguel. This is that thing." "Got it. I'll handle it." Miguel was good people. I'd helped his daughter with college applications, connected her with scholarship opportunities. He understood loyalty. Thursday brought the first real escalation. Marcus showed up at what he thought was my workplace, a small non-profit where I'd volunteered years ago and which still listed me on their website. The director, Sarah, called me laughing. "Your brother just stormed in here demanding to see you. He's very intense." "What did you tell him?" "That you haven't worked here in 3 years. He didn't believe me. He's looking at your photo on our volunteer wall, like it's proof of something." "Thank you, Sarah. Any time. Though I have to ask, what's going on?" "Family stuff. Long story. The best stories usually are." By Friday, exactly 1 week after the party, I received the email I'd been waiting for. It came from my father's attorney, a man named Gerald Whitmore, who'd handled the family's legal affairs for decades, and who had no idea how deeply entangled those affairs had become with my own financial interventions. "Dear Miss Chen, I represent your father, Robert Chen, and your mother, Linda Chen, In various legal and financial matters, they have asked me to reach out to you regarding several urgent financial issues that have recently come to light. It has come to our attention that certain payments related to the family residence, business operations, and personal accounts have been made from sources connected to you. The cessation of these payments has created a significant financial crisis for your parents. We need to schedule a meeting immediately to discuss the situation and determine the appropriate path forward. Please contact my office at your earliest convenience. Sincerely, Gerald Whitmore Isk. I read it twice, savoring the language. Come to our attention. Sources connected to you. Significant financial crisis. They still didn't fully understand. They still thought this was something that could be resolved with a meeting, a conversation, maybe an apology and a promise. They thought I was the problem. They had no idea that I'd been the solution all along. I drafted a response. Dear Mr. Whitmore, thank you for your email. I appreciate you reaching out on behalf of my parents. I want to clarify a few points. 1. Any payments I may have made on behalf of my family were gifts, made voluntarily and without any agreement or expectation of reimbursement. 2. As gifts, I am under no legal or moral obligation to continue making them. 3. I have decided to discontinue these gifts, effective immediately. 4. I will not be attending any meetings to discuss this matter, as there is nothing to discuss. My decision is final. I wish my family well in resolving their financial matters. Best regards, Camille Chen. I copied my own attorney, Rebecca Martinez, on the email. Rebecca had been helping me document everything for months. Every payment, every loan, every transfer, all carefully recorded, all legally airtight. You're really doing this, Rebecca had said when I first laid out my plan. I'm really doing this. They're going to lose everything. They already lost everything. They just don't know it yet. Rebecca had looked at me with something like admiration. Remind me never to get on your bad side. I hit send on the email to Whitmore and leaned back in my chair, looking out at the city skyline. Somewhere out there, my family was panicking, scrambling, trying to figure out how to plug a dam that was already broken. Let them panic. Let them scramble. For years I'd been invisible. I'd been quiet. I'd been the one they overlooked and underestimated and mocked. Now they'd learn what it cost to keep someone like me invisible. Now they'd learn what happened when the foundation walked away. The creditors arrived the following Tuesday. I wasn't there to see it, but Marcus's girlfriend Ashley, soon to be ex-girlfriend, I suspected, posted about it on social media before someone told her to take it down. A photo of 3 cars in the driveway, a caption reading "Worst Tuesday ever," with a sad face emoji. The screenshot was forwarded to me by Sarah from the non-profit, along with a message, "Is this your family?" Someone shared it in a local group. I looked at the image. The cars in the driveway were nondescript sedans, the kind debt collectors drove when they wanted to look official but not threatening. The kind that said, "We're here on business," without saying, "We're here to ruin your life." Though to be fair, those were basically the same thing. My phone rang. My father. I let it go to voicemail. I'd let all 43 of his previous calls go to voicemail. This one would be no different. What I did do was check my email. Gerald Whitmore had sent another message, more urgent this time. "Miss Chen, the situation has become critical. Your parents are facing immediate foreclosure proceedings. Multiple creditors are threatening legal action. We need to discuss this matter urgently. please reconsider your decision not to meet. Whatever disagreements exist within the family, surely they can be resolved through dialogue rather than through actions that could destroy your parents' financial security. Your cooperation in this matter would be greatly appreciated. GW, I noted the shift in tone, from formal to almost pleading. The "your cooperation would be appreciated" was lawyer speak for "please, for the love of God, fix this." I didn't respond. Instead, I sent a text to Rebecca. Phase 2? Her reply came immediately. Phase 2. What my family didn't know, what nobody except Rebecca and I knew, was that I hadn't just stopped paying their bills. I'd also called in my own debts. 3 years ago, when my father's business hit a rough patch, I'd loaned him $300,000 to cover payroll and keep operations running. He'd signed a promissory note, probably without reading it carefully, definitely without understanding the repayment terms I'd carefully structured with Rebecca's help. That loan was now due. All of it. Plus interest. 2 years ago, when Marcus wanted to buy into a can't-miss cryptocurrency venture, I'd co-signed a $150,000 loan with him. The venture had predictably missed. Marcus had defaulted. I'd been making the payments to protect my credit, but the original loan documents made him primarily liable. Those payments had stopped too. And now the lender wanted their money. From Marcus. 18 months ago, when Diane's husband left her, that traveling for work story hadn't held up. She'd needed money for a lawyer and living expenses. I'd set up a trust fund for her with very specific terms about repayment if her divorce settlement came through. It had. She'd gotten the house, the cars, and a substantial monthly alimony payment. She owed me $85,000. With interest, it was now just over $100,000. The mortgage I'd been paying, the one on my parents' house, I'd put in my name 3 years ago when they refinanced. They thought they were just giving me signing authority in case of emergency. What they'd actually done was make me the primary borrower and them the co-signers. I'd been making the payments, keeping everything current, protecting everyone's credit. Now the mortgage was in default. And as co-signers, my parents were liable for the full amount. Add it all up. The loans, the credit cards, the mortgage, the business debt. And my family was on the hook for just over $2.3 million. $2.3 million they didn't have and couldn't get. Rebecca had helped me structure everything carefully. Every loan documented. Every transfer recorded. Every agreement signed and notarized. We'd built a legal fortress around my decision to stop paying, making it clear that I'd been under no obligation to pay any of it in the first place, and that any payments I had made were gifts or loans, both of which I was free to discontinue at will. The beauty of it, Rebecca had explained, is that they can't claim you promised to keep paying because that would require them to admit they knew you were paying in the first place. And if they admit that, they have to explain why they never questioned it, never thanked you, never even acknowledged it. They'd have to admit they knew. I'd said slowly, understanding. Exactly. They'd have to admit they saw you, that they knew you were helping, that they chose to take the help while mocking you for not contributing. It makes them look either incredibly ungrateful or incredibly stupid. Probably both. I'd smiled at that. You're devious, Rebecca. No, she'd corrected. I'm thorough. There's a difference. Now, Sitting in my office with the afternoon sun streaming through the windows, I pulled up the folder labeled Family on my computer. Inside were subfolders for each family member, and within those, meticulous documentation of every financial transaction going back 5 years. Every mortgage payment, documented. Every loan documented. Every credit card payment, documented. Every co-signed agreement, documented. Every trust fund distribution, documented. Every business loan advance, documented. I had bank statements, cancelled checks, wire transfer confirmations, signed promissory notes, email exchanges, text messages, even recordings of phone calls, made in a one-party consent state, all perfectly legal, where family members had asked for money, and I'd agreed to help. What I didn't have was any evidence that they'd ever paid me back. Because they hadn't. Not once, not ever. My phone buzzed. A text from Diane. Camille, please call me. I know we haven't always been close, but I need to talk to you. It's important. I stared at the message. Haven't always been close was an interesting way to describe 28 years of being ignored, dismissed, and treated like the family disappointment. Another text, this one from Marcus. You're really going to let Mum and Dad lose the house? Over some stupid comment at a party? Grow up. I actually laughed at that one. Some stupid comment at a party, as if that's what this was about. As if the issue was that my feelings were hurt, not that I'd spent years propping up a family that treated me like furniture. But that was the thing about people like Marcus. They genuinely couldn't see beyond their own perspective. In his mind, this was me being petty and vindictive over an insult. The idea that I might have legitimate grievances, that I might have been contributing all along, that I might have been silently holding everything together, none of that would ever occur to him. Because seeing that would require him to see me, really see me, and he never had. None of them had. My computer pinged with a calendar reminder. Board meeting, 3 p.m. Right. Work. The actual work I did. At the actual job they didn't know I had. I'd founded my company, Meridian Holdings, 6 years ago. Fresh out of business school with a degree from Stanford. Full scholarship. Graduated top of my class. Neither of which my family had bothered to attend or acknowledge. We provided financial consulting and restructuring services to mid-sized companies facing cash flow problems. Basically, I fixed broken businesses. I was very good at it. Good enough that Meridian now had 40 employees, offices in 3 cities, and annual revenues in the 8 figures. Good enough that I'd been profiled in Forbes last year. I'd used my middle name, Marie, for the article, and my family hadn't connected the dots. Good enough that I was sitting on a personal net worth that would have made my father's jaw drop. But I'd kept it all quiet. Kept living in the modest apartment, on paper. Kept driving the unremarkable car. Kept dressing simply. Kept playing the role of the underachieving youngest child who never quite found her footing. Why is he? Because I'd learned something important early on. My family couldn't take from me what they didn't know I had. And because, and I could admit this now in the privacy of my own thoughts, part of me had been curious. Curious to see how long it would go on, how much they would take, how far they would push. Curious to see if any of them would ever stop and ask, "Wait, where is all this money coming from?" They never did. I grabbed my tablet and headed to the conference room. The board meeting lasted 2 hours. Discussions of expansion strategies, new client acquisitions, personnel reviews. Normal business for a thriving company. When I got back to my office, there were 23 new missed calls. The voicemails had gone from angry to desperate. Camille, this is your mother. Please, sweetheart, we need to talk. There's been some terrible misunderstanding. Call me back. It's Dad. Look, maybe I was out of line at the party. Maybe I said some things I shouldn't have, but this is serious now, Camille. People are threatening to take the house. We need your help. Camille, it's Marcus. Look, I'm sorry, okay? Whatever I did, whatever we did, I'm sorry. But you can't let them lose everything over this. They're your parents. Call me back. Even Diane had left a message, her voice thick with tears. Camille, I don't understand what's happening. Mom is crying all the time. Dad looks like he's aged 10 years. Please, just talk to them, please. I listened to each one impassively, noted the progression, anger to confusion, to panic to desperation, noted what none of them said. Thank you for all the years you helped us. We're sorry we never acknowledged what you did. We're sorry we treated you like you were worthless. Instead, it was all about what I owed them, what I needed to do for them, how I was failing them by not continuing to sacrifice for a family that had never sacrificed anything for me. Rebecca called. Your father's attorney reached out to me directly. He's frantic is probably the right word. What did you tell him? I told him what we discussed. That you've been financially supporting your family for years. That you're under no obligation to continue. That any debts owed to you are valid and enforceable. And that if they have questions about the specifics, they should direct them to you. Though you've made it clear you're not interested in discussing it. How did he respond? He asked if there was any way to resolve this amicably. I said that was between you and your family. Perfect. Camille. Rebecca's tone shifted slightly. I have to ask, are you sure about this? I mean, legally, you're completely covered. Morally, you're more than justified. But emotionally, are you prepared for what's about to happen? I looked out at the city again. The sun was starting to set, painting the buildings in shades of orange and gold. Rebecca, I've been prepared for this my entire life. I just didn't know it until a week ago. All right then. Let me know if you need anything. I will. Thanks. I hung up and pulled up my email. Time for phase 3. I composed a message to the entire family. My parents, Marcus, Diane. BCC'd to Rebecca and Gerald Whitmore. Dear family, I'm writing this email because I want to address the situation clearly and directly, without the confusion of multiple phone calls and messages. For the past several years, I have been providing substantial financial support to this family. This support has included mortgage payments on the family home, business loans, and operating capital for Dad's company, credit card payments and debt servicing, co-signed loans, trust fund distributions, various other expenses and financial assistance. I provided this support quietly, without asking for recognition or repayment, because I believed it was what family did for each other. However, at Mum's birthday party last week, I was publicly humiliated in front of approximately 75 guests. I was mocked for showing up without money, and for hoping to be seen as somebody, despite contributing nothing to the family. It was in that moment that I realized something. You genuinely don't know. You don't know what I've been doing. You don't know what I've built. You don't know who I actually am. And more importantly, you never bothered to find out. So I've decided to stop. Stop paying. Stop supporting. Stop being invisible while you take credit for stability I provided. The financial obligations I'm withdrawing from include 1. The mortgage, which is actually in my name. 2. Dad's business loan, $300,000, now due. 3. Marcus's co-signed loan of $150,000, in default. 4. Diane's trust repayment, $100 owed. 5. Various credit cards and revolving credit lines. Total, approximately $2.3 million. I've attached documentation of all these arrangements. You'll find everything is legal, properly executed, and enforceable. I want to be clear. I'm not doing this out of spite or revenge. I'm doing this because I will no longer allow myself to be taken for granted. I will no longer be the invisible foundation of a family that treats me like I'm worthless. You wanted me to stop showing up without money? Done. The broke one has stopped paying. You wanted me to contribute something real? Too late. I already did. For years. And you never noticed. What happens next is entirely up to you. You can try to solve your financial crisis. You can declare bankruptcy. You can downsize your lives. You can actually figure out how to live within your means. What you cannot do is expect me to fix it. I wish you all the best, Camille. I attached 17 PDF files, loan documents, mortgage papers, payment histories, signed agreements. Everything carefully labeled and organized. Everything undeniable. My finger hovered over the send button. This was it. The point of no return. Once I sent this email, there would be no walking it back. No way to pretend it was a misunderstanding or a temporary anger. This would burn every bridge, salt every field, turn every relationship to ash. I thought about my childhood, about being the youngest, the quietest, the one who learned early that being seen meant being criticized. I thought about dinners where my achievements were glossed over while Marcus's mediocre grades were celebrated. I thought about birthdays where my gifts were forgotten and my siblings were elaborate productions. I thought about the year I got a full scholarship to Stanford, and my mother said, "That's nice, dear," and then spent an hour talking about the new car they were buying Marcus for college. I thought about every time I'd offered to help with the family business and been told, "That's okay, sweetheart. We have it handled." I thought about every time I'd paid a bill, transferred money, covered an expense, and never received a single thank you, because they didn't know, or didn't care, that I was the one doing it. I thought about that moment at the party, standing there with a champagne glass in my hand while my father toasted to the one who shows up without money. And I pressed send. The email whooshed away into the digital void. No taking it back now. I closed my laptop, picked up my phone, and did something I hadn't done in years. I turned it completely off. Then I gathered my things, told James I'd be out of the office for a few days, and drove home to my real apartment. The one no one in my family knew about, the penthouse in the luxury building downtown with a view that made my office view look ordinary. I poured myself a glass of wine. Actually expensive wine. the kind I'd been buying for family gatherings and pretending I couldn't afford for myself, and sat on my balcony, watching the city lights flicker on as darkness fell. Somewhere out there, my family was reading that email. Somewhere out there, their entire understanding of reality was collapsing. Somewhere out there, they were finally seeing me. And I wasn't there to watch. Because I didn't need to watch. I'd already won. The email detonated at 6:47 p.m. on a Tuesday evening. I know the exact time because Rebecca called me 32 minutes later. Her voice a mix of awe and concern. "Camille, what did you do?" I was still on my balcony, the wine glass empty beside me, watching the city breathe its evening rhythm. I sent the email, like we discussed. "Honey, we discussed a brief explanation, maybe 1 or 2 attached documents. You sent them a 17-file evidence package that would hold up in federal court. Their attorney called me 3 times in 15 minutes. He sounds like he's having a breakdown. Gerald Whitmore? He'll be fine. He's been practicing law for 40 years. That's not the point. The point is..." She paused, and I heard papers rustling. "The point is, you just dropped a nuclear bomb on your family. They had no idea. None. Your father's business loan? He thought that money came from a bank consortium. Your mother's house? She thought your father paid for it outright 20 years ago. Marcus didn't even remember the co-signed loan until your documentation reminded him. Then they should have paid closer attention." Rebecca laughed, a short bark of sound. "You're not wrong, but Camille, they're imploding. Whitmore says your father is talking about suing you. Your mother is claiming it's all a misunderstanding. Marcus is threatening to, and I quote, 'expose you for the fraud you are.' Let him try. You're not worried?" I stood, walking to the edge of the balcony, looking down at the street 23 floors below. Cars like toys, people like ants. Everything small and distant and manageable from up here. "Rebecca, everything I've done is legal. You made sure of it. Every loan is documented. Every payment is recorded. Every agreement is signed. They can sue all they want. They'll lose, and they'll spend money they don't have doing it. You really thought this through?" I had years to think it through. Years of being invisible. You learn a lot when people forget you're in the room. After we hung up, I turned my phone back on. The notifications were immediate and overwhelming. 147 missed calls, 83 text messages, 34 voicemails, 19 emails. A tsunami of panic and rage and confusion. I scrolled through some of the messages. From my father. "You have betrayed this family in ways I cannot even comprehend. Your mother is in tears. Your actions are unconscionable. Call me immediately." From my mother. "Camille, please, there must be some mistake. Some misunderstanding. The papers you sent, they can't be real. Please call me, please." From Marcus. "You're fucking insane, you know that? Completely insane, you're going to regret this." From Diane. "I don't understand any of this. How could you do this to Mom and Dad? To us? We're your family." That last one almost made me laugh. We're your family. As if that meant something. As if being family was a magical shield that made betrayal impossible. Or at least forgivable. But here's what I'd learned. Family isn't what you're born into. It's what you build. And I'd been building by myself for years, while they treated me like scaffolding, necessary for the construction, but invisible once the building was complete. I deleted all the messages without responding. What I did do was check my email. There were several from Gerald Whitmore, each more urgent than the last. Miss Chen, we need to speak immediately about the allegations in your email. Miss Chen, I must insist we schedule a call to discuss the documentation you've provided. Miss Chen, your father is considering legal action. Please respond so we can resolve this matter without litigation. And finally, Miss Chen, I've reviewed the documents you provided. I need you to understand that if these are accurate, the situation is far more complex than your family realizes. We need to discuss this matter urgently, not on their behalf, but possibly on yours. Please call me. That last one was interesting. The shift from "we need to resolve this for your family" to "we need to discuss this for your protection." Gerald Whitmore had seen enough legal documents in his career to recognize airtight work when he saw it. He'd also probably realized that any litigation my family attempted would not only fail but would expose them to countersuits. I drafted a reply. Mr. Whitmore, I appreciate your concern. However, I have my own legal representation, Rebecca Martinez, whom you've already spoken with. All future communication regarding this matter should go through her. I'm sure you understand that given my family's response to my email, I'm not comfortable speaking with anyone representing their interests. If you'd like to discuss the situation from a neutral standpoint, I'm open to that conversation. Through Rebecca. Best regards. Camille. I sent it and immediately forwarded the exchange to Rebecca with a note. Whitmore wants to talk. Your thoughts? Her response came within minutes. He's smart. He's realized they're screwed and is trying to do damage control. I'll take the call, don't worry. Don't worry. As if I was worried. I'd been planning this for months. Every scenario mapped out. Every contingency prepared for. I wasn't worried. I was exhilarated. That night, I slept better than I had in years. No anxiety dreams about missing payments or family emergencies. No nightmares about being discovered and having to explain myself. Just deep, dreamless sleep in my king-size bed, with the 1,000 thread count sheets and the weighted blanket and the white noise machine that made everything feel safe and separate and mine. When I woke up Wednesday morning, the sun was streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. And for the first time in as long as I could remember, I felt light, unburdened. Like I'd been carrying something heavy for so long that I'd forgotten what it felt like to stand up straight. I made coffee. Good coffee, from the expensive Italian machine I'd bought myself for Christmas, and sat at my dining table with my laptop, going through the aftermath. The calls and messages had continued overnight. Apparently, no one in my family slept. The texts had evolved from anger to bargaining. From my mother, Camille, I know you're upset. I understand. But please, let's talk about this. Let's work something out. You're right. We should have noticed. We should have thanked you. We're sorry, please. From Marcus. Look, maybe we can figure out a payment plan or something. For the loans. I can't pay it all at once, but I can make payments. Let's be reasonable here. From Diane. I'm going to pay you back. Every penny. I promise. Just please don't let them foreclose on the house. Mom and Dad don't deserve this. From my father. Nothing. Radio silence from him since the initial angry message. That was interesting. In the Chen family hierarchy, silence from my father was more ominous than shouting. I sipped my coffee and thought about responses. Did I want to engage? Did I want to give them the opening they were clearly desperate for? Part of me, the old part, the part that had spent 28 years trying to be good enough, trying to be seen, wanted to respond, wanted to explain, wanted to make them understand not just what I'd done, but why, and what it had cost me to be invisible for so long. But the new part, the part that had sent that email, that had walked away from the party, that had finally stopped performing the role of the struggling daughter, knew better. Silence was its own kind of power. So I didn't respond. Not to my mother's pleading, not to Marcus's bargaining, not to Diane's promises, not to my father's absence. I just continued my life. Went to work, led meetings, reviewed contracts, had lunch with a potential client, went to the gym, cooked dinner, watched a movie, lived. And while I lived, they spiraled. I know they spiraled because Rebecca kept me updated. She'd had her call with Gerald Whitmore, and he'd painted a picture of a family in complete meltdown. Your father, Rebecca told me over drinks Thursday evening, has apparently locked himself in his study. Won't come out. Won't talk to anyone. Just sits there going through financial records, trying to figure out how he missed this. He missed it because he didn't want to see it, I said. Clearly. Your mother is trying to hold everything together, but she's out of her depth. She called Whitmore crying, asking if there's any way to make you understand reason. Meaning make me keep paying. Exactly. Marcus is threatening to go public. Tell everyone you're destroying the family. Whitmore talked him out of it by pointing out that going public means admitting they were taking money from you for years without acknowledging it. And Diane? Diane is actually trying to figure out how to pay you back. She's apparently meeting with financial advisors, looking at her assets. She's the only one treating this like a legitimate debt, rather than an emotional hostage situation. I nodded slowly. That tracked. Diane had always been the most pragmatic of my siblings. Not the kindest, not the most aware, but the most likely to deal with reality once she couldn't avoid it anymore. So what happens now? I asked. Now? Now they have about 2 weeks before the foreclosure proceedings become real, before the creditors start legal action, before everything they've built or think they've built falls apart. Rebecca swirled her wine, watching the light catch in the glass. Unless you change your mind. I won't. I know. But I have to ask, what's the end game here, Camille? Is this just about making them understand? About proving a point? Or is there something else? I thought about that. What was the end game? I want them to see me, I said finally. Really see me. Not as the disappointing daughter, or the broke one, or the person they can ignore while they use my money. I want them to understand what they had, what they lost, and why they lost it. And then? And then nothing. Then I move on with my life. The life I actually have, not the one they think I have. That's it? You're not looking for reconciliation, for apologies. Rebecca, if they apologize now, It's because they're desperate, because they need something from me. I don't want apologies extracted under duress. I just want them to know the truth. After that, I shrugged. After that, we'll see. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. It was Saturday morning, 9 days after the party, when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer. I'd been ignoring unfamiliar numbers all week, assuming they were family members calling from borrowed phones or creditors trying to reach me about debts that weren't mine. But something made me pick up. Camille Chen. My voice was professional, neutral. Camille, this is Gerald Whitmore. Please don't hang up. I paused. Mr. Whitmore, I thought we agreed all communication would go through Rebecca. We did, and I've spoken with Miss Martinez. But I'm calling you now in a different capacity. What does that mean? He sighed, a heavy sound that carried what felt like decades of legal complications. It means I've been the Chen family attorney for 37 years. I've handled your parents' business affairs, their estate planning, their contracts. I've known you since you were born. I'm aware. What you might not be aware of is that I'm also bound by attorney-client privilege. And sometimes, that privilege creates complicated situations. Situations where I have information that might help one client, but would harm another. I sat up straighter, suddenly alert. Mr. Whitmore, what are you telling me? I'm telling you that I've spent the last week reviewing every document you sent. Every loan agreement, every payment record, every contract. And I've also been reviewing my own files. Files I've maintained on the Chen family finances for decades. And I think you should come to my office. Alone. There are things you need to see. Things that will change your understanding of this situation. My heart was racing now, though I kept my voice calm. What kind of things? Things I can't discuss over the phone. But Camille. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was different, softer, almost sad. You're not the only one who's been invisible. You're not the only one who's been paying for things quietly, and you deserve to know the full picture before you decide what comes next. We agreed to meet at his office Monday morning, early, before his staff arrived. I spent the rest of the weekend in a state of strange anticipation, trying to imagine what he could possibly have to show me. More debts, hidden accounts, evidence that my family had known all along what I was doing and had deliberately taken advantage. I couldn't have imagined the truth. Whitmore's office was in a historic building downtown, all dark wood and brass fixtures and the smell of old books. He was waiting in his conference room when I arrived, a box of files on the table between us. He looked older than I remembered, tired, like the past week had aged him. "Thank you for coming," he said, gesturing to a chair. "Can I get you coffee? Water?" "I'm fine. Let's just..." "What is this, Mr. Whitmore?" He sat down across from me, his hands folded on the table. "Before we begin, I need you to understand something. What I'm about to show you is privileged information. I'm sharing it with you because you have a right to know, and because the ethical lines of my profession sometimes allow for discretion when keeping secrets would cause more harm than revealing them. You're starting to worry me. That's not my intention, but you need to be prepared. What you are about to learn will recontextualize everything you think you know about your family's finances. And about your grandmother. My grandmother? I was confused. Grandmother Chen died when I was 12. What does she have to do with this? Everything, Whitmore said softly. He opened the box and withdrew a leather-bound portfolio. Your grandmother, Eleanor Chen, came to me 31 years ago, shortly after you were born. She wanted to set up a trust. He slid the portfolio across to me. I opened it carefully. Inside was a trust document, thick with legal language, dated March 1994. I scanned the first page, trying to make sense of the dense text. The Eleanor Chen Irrevocable Trust, I read aloud. For the benefit of... Oh my God. For the benefit of Camille Marie Chen, Whitmore finished. Your grandmother established this trust with a substantial endowment, $2.3 million to be precise. It was to be held until you turned 25, at which point you would gain full control. My hands were shaking. $2.3 million. But no one ever told me about this. That's because your grandmother made a very specific provision. The trust's existence was not to be revealed to you until you turned 25, and only if certain conditions were met. What conditions? Whitmore pulled out another document. That you demonstrated financial independence and responsibility. That you had not declared bankruptcy or been convicted of financial crimes. That you had completed higher education. And this is the important one. That you had not been unduly influenced by or dependent upon the Chen family financial resources. I stared at him. She didn't want them to know about the money. She didn't want them to use you as a pass-through for your money. Your grandmother was... She was a sharp woman, Camille. She saw how her own son, your father, handled money. How he was always taking risks, always spending beyond his means, always assuming there would be more. She didn't want your inheritance caught up in that. So what happened? I turned 25 3 years ago. Why didn't anyone tell me? Whitmore's expression grew pained. Because I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. When you turned 25, I was supposed to conduct a review to ensure you met all the conditions. I did that review. You'd graduated from Stanford with honors. You'd started your own successful business. You had no financial entanglements or dependencies. You met every condition. But when I started the process of contacting you to arrange the trust transfer, your father came to see me. He'd heard somehow that I was trying to reach you. He asked what it was about. My stomach sank. You told him. I shouldn't have. Attorney-client privilege should have protected the information. But your father? He was convincing. He said he was worried about you. Said you'd been struggling. Said he wanted to make sure you were okay before any financial matters were discussed. He made it sound like he was being protective. And you believed him? I did. And God help me, Camille. I told him about the trust. Not all the details, but enough. I told him there was a sum of money held for you, and that I'd be releasing it soon. Whitmore pulled out more documents, bank statements, transfer records. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that your father would immediately go to your mother, to your siblings, and convince them that the trust money was actually family money. Money that should be shared among all the children, or used for family expenses. I felt cold. He stole my inheritance. Not technically. The money never left the trust. But he started a campaign to delay the release. He claimed you weren't ready for it, that you needed more time to mature financially, that releasing 2.3 million to a 25-year-old would be irresponsible. Even though I'd met every condition my grandmother set. Yes, and I let him convince me. I let him talk me into waiting, into conducting more reviews, into finding reasons to delay. I told myself I was being cautious, protecting you from yourself. But the truth is, I was protecting your father's access to what he'd come to see as available family resources. The room felt like it was tilting. How long? How long were you going to wait? I don't know. Maybe forever. Maybe until your father had extracted everything he could. But then 2 weeks ago, I got your email. I saw the documentation. I said what you'd been doing, supporting the entire family with your own money while they mocked you for being broke. And you realized. I realized I'd been complicit in the worst kind of financial abuse. Your grandmother tried to protect you. She set up every safeguard she could imagine. And I let your father circumvent all of it. Tears were running down my face now. I didn't even realize I was crying until I felt them drip onto the trust documents. My grandmother knew, I whispered. She knew what they were like. She knew they'd take advantage of me. She knew, and she tried to protect you. And I failed her. I failed you. I looked up at Whitmore. He was crying too, this 70-something-year-old lawyer who'd spent nearly 4 decades managing my family's affairs. So what now? I asked. What happens to the trust? That's why I called you here. The trust is still valid. The money is still there. Actually, it's grown to just over 3.1 million with investment returns. And as of 3 years ago, when you turned 25 and met every condition, it became legally yours. He slid a set of forms across the table. All I need is your signature. All this time I've been the barrier, but there's no barrier anymore. This is your money. Your grandmother's gift to you. Your inheritance. I looked at the forms. At the number. 3,127,443,028. $3 million. More than enough to cover everything I'd spent on my family with money to spare. Mr. Whitmore, I said slowly. Does my family know about this? Your father knows there's a trust. He doesn't know I'm releasing it to you now. He doesn't know the exact amount, or that it's grown, or that I'm no longer blocking the transfer. Does he know that I know? No, I haven't told him I'm meeting with you. I nodded, my mind racing. An inheritance. A secret inheritance that my father had tried to keep from me. That he'd manipulated a lawyer into withholding, that he'd been treating as family money he could eventually access. If I sign these forms, I said carefully, when does the transfer happen? Immediately. The money can be in your account within 48 hours, and my family will find out when I send them the final accounting of the trust, which I'm required to do once it's been dispersed. They'll see that the trust has been emptied, transferred to you in full. I picked up the pen. I thought about my grandmother, a woman I barely remembered now, just fragments of memory, her hands teaching me to bake, her voice reading me stories, her laugh that sounded like music. She'd been gone 16 years, but she'd seen me. really seen me, had understood what my father was and what my family might become. She'd tried to protect me with money I didn't know existed. And now, finally, that protection was mine to claim. I signed every form, every page, every line that required my signature. When I was done, I slid them back across the table to Whitmore. "Thank you," I said quietly, "for telling me, for making this right. It's not right, it's years too late, but it's something." He gathered the forms, placed them carefully in a folder. "Camille, there's one more thing. Something I think you should know." "What's that?" "Your grandmother's letter. She left one for you to be delivered with the trust. I've been holding it all this time." He reached into the box and withdrew an envelope, yellowed with age, my name written on the front in careful cursive. I took it with trembling hands. "Read it when you're ready," Whitmore said. "And Camille, whatever you decide to do with this money, with your family, with everything, it's your choice. Your grandmother gave you that, the freedom to choose." I left his office 45 minutes later, the letter unopened in my purse, my mind reeling with the weight of everything I'd learned. I didn't go home. I drove to the beach instead, an hour outside the city, to a stretch of sand I'd discovered years ago when I was looking for places to think, to breathe, to be alone with myself. I sat on a piece of driftwood and opened my grandmother's letter. "My dearest Camille, if you're reading this, I am gone, and you are 25 years old. Old enough to understand, old enough to be trusted with the truth. I have watched my son, your father, for 53 years. I love him. I will always love him. But I am not blind to who he is. He is a man who believes the world owes him more than he has earned. He is a man who spends first and thinks later. He is a man who will take from anyone who allows it, including his own children. I have watched him with your brother and sister, and I have seen how he shapes them in his image. But you, my darling girl, you are different. You are quiet where they are loud. You are thoughtful where they are impulsive. You watch, you listen. You understand things they cannot see. I am leaving you this money not because you need rescue, but because you deserve freedom. Freedom from feeling obligated to sacrifice yourself for people who will never appreciate the sacrifice. Freedom to build your own life without the weight of family expectation dragging you down. Do not tell them about this money. Do not share it with them. Do not let them convince you that family means giving everything away until there is nothing left of yourself. Family should be where you are seen, valued, and cherished. If your family cannot do that for you, then this money is your escape route, your chance to build something better. Use it wisely. Use it well. Use it to become the person I already see in you. Strong, independent, and free. I love you, little one. I always will. Grandmother. I read it 3 times, sitting there on the driftwood as the sun moved across the sky and the waves crashed rhythmically against the shore. She'd seen me. Before I could even see myself, she'd seen me. And she'd given me exactly what I needed. Not just money, but permission. Permission to put myself first. Permission to walk away. Permission to stop performing the role of grateful daughter, supportive sister, invisible family member. I folded the letter carefully, placed it back in the envelope, and took out my phone. I had some calls to make. The family meeting was scheduled for Friday morning, exactly 2 weeks after my mother's birthday party. It took place in Gerald Whitmore's conference room, neutral ground, as Rebecca put it, with legal witnesses present. My entire family was there when I arrived. My father sat at the head of the table, his face drawn and grey. My mother next to him, looking small and anxious. Marcus and Ashley on one side, Diane alone on the other. They all looked up when I walked in. Their expressions a mixture of hope, a dangabin, confusion, and desperation. I looked different than they remembered. I dressed carefully for this meeting, not in the simple, understated clothes I usually wore around them, but in what I actually wore to work. A tailored Armani suit, Louboutin heels, subtle but expensive jewelry. My hair was professionally styled. I carried a leather briefcase that cost more than Marcus's monthly car payment. I looked, in other words, like exactly what I was. A successful businesswoman who had her life together. The shock on their faces was almost comical. "Camille," my mother breathed. "You look different?" I supplied, taking a seat across from them. Rebecca sat beside me. Whitmore at his position at the side of the table, technically neutral, but clearly uncomfortable. "I want to start?" My father began, his voice strained, by saying that we've all had a very difficult 2 weeks. This situation has been stressful for everyone. And I think we need to have an honest conversation about how I've been financially supporting this family for years while you mocked me for being broke. I interrupted, my voice calm but cutting. "Yes, I agree. Let's have that conversation." My father's face reddened. "Now, Camille." "No." I held up my hand. "You've talked at me for 28 years. You've talked over me, around me, about me. Today you're going to listen." I opened my briefcase and withdrew a leather portfolio, similar to the one Whitmore had shown me earlier in the week. But this one was mine. My documentation. My story. "Let me start with some numbers," I said, sliding papers across the table. "In the past 3 years, I have paid $847,000 in mortgage payments on a house that I live in. That house is in my name, with you listed as co-signers. You thought you owned it. You don't." My mother made a small sound of distress. My father's jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscles jumping. "I have paid $127,000 in credit card debt for the family. Cards that you used, Marcus and Ashley, for your lifestyle expenses. Cards that Diane used for her legal fees. Cards that Mum and Dad used for vacations, renovations, and general living expenses that you couldn't actually afford." I slid more papers across. "I loaned Dad $300,000 3 years ago to save his business from bankruptcy. That loan is documented, signed, and now due. With interest, the current amount owed is $347,000. My father opened his mouth, but I continued. "I co-signed a loan for Marcus in the amount of $150,000 for a cryptocurrency investment that predictably failed. Marcus defaulted. I made the payments to protect my credit. The loan documents make him primarily liable. Current amount due, $162,000. Marcus looked like he wanted to sink through the floor. "I established a trust fund for Diane when her marriage ended, with specific repayment terms tied to her divorce settlement. That settlement came through 18 months ago. She's received $847,000 in assets and $12,000 monthly alimony. She owes me $85,000, which with interest is now $98,000. I paused, letting the numbers sink in. The total amount this family owes me, through documented loans and obligations, is $607,000. The total amount I have paid on your behalf in the past 3 years, money I gave freely as gifts, expecting nothing in return, is approximately $1.3 million. Almost $2 million, my mother whispered. $1,900,000, I confirmed. That's what it cost to keep this family afloat. That's what it cost to maintain the illusion that you were successful, stable, and wealthy. We didn't know, my mother said, tears streaming down her face. Camille, we didn't know. You didn't want to know, I corrected gently. There's a difference. You never asked where the money came from. You never questioned how bills got paid when Dad's business was struggling. You never wondered how the mortgage stayed current or how credit cards got paid off. You just assumed. You just took. But how? Diane asked, her voice small. How did you have that kind of money? You were always saying you were broke, that you were struggling. I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. I was never broke, Diane. I was invisible. There's a difference. I pulled out another set of documents. 6 years ago, I graduated from Stanford Business School, an event none of you attended, by the way. I started a financial consulting firm called Meridian Holdings. We specialize in restructuring troubled companies. I slid my business profile across the table. My professional headshot. My Forbes article. My company's financial statements. Meridian currently employs 43 people across 3 offices. Last year, we grossed $14.7 million in revenue. My personal net worth, as of this morning, is approximately $8.2 million. The silence was absolute. $8 million, my father finally said, his voice barely audible. 8.2, I corrected. Though that number went up significantly this week when Mr. Whitmore finally released my grandmother's trust to me. Every head turned to Whitmore, who looked profoundly uncomfortable. Grandmother's trust? My mother asked. Yes, the one grandmother Eleanor established for me when I was born, the one containing $2.3 million, which has grown to just over $3.1 million, the one Dad knew about and convinced Mr. Whitmore to withhold from me. The accusation landed like a bomb. My mother turned to my father, her face a mask of shock and betrayal. Robert, you knew about this. I can explain, my father started. He knew, I interrupted. He knew 3 years ago when I turned 25 and met all the conditions for release. He came to Mr. Whitmore and convinced him I wasn't ready, that I needed more time and aid, that the money should be available for family needs. Family needs, my mother repeated hollowly. Robert, that was Camille's money. It was Mother's money, my father snapped, some of his bluster returning, and she would have wanted it used for the family, for all of us, not just hoarded by me, I finished, the granddaughter she specifically chose to protect. The one she wrote a letter to, warning me about exactly this. I pulled out the letter, now safely copied and stored in multiple locations, and read it aloud. Every word, every warning, every expression of love and concern. When I finished, my mother was sobbing openly. Diane was crying too. Even Marcus looked shaken. My father sat frozen, the color draining from his face as he realized how completely he'd been outmaneuvered. "So, here's where we are," I said, my voice steady despite the emotion churning inside me. "You owe me $607,000 in documented, enforceable debt. You've accepted approximately $1.3 million in gifts that I gave freely, foolishly believing that family meant something beyond financial transactions. And you've spent 2 weeks calling me, texting me, emailing me, begging me to fix the financial crisis you created by living beyond your means for years while mocking me for allegedly doing the same." "Camille," my mother pleaded, "what do you want from us?" I looked at her, really looked at her. This woman who'd raised me but never quite seen me, who'd been present in my life but never truly engaged, who'd loved me, I suppose, in her way, but had never bothered to know me. "I don't want anything from you, Mum. That's the point. I don't want your money. I don't want your apologies that only come because you're desperate. I don't want your promises to change or do better or appreciate me more. I just wanted you to see me. And now you do. Now you all do. Now you understand who I actually am, what I've actually built, what I've actually been doing while you convinced yourselves I was the family failure. So what happens now?" Marcus asked, his voice stripped of its usual arrogance. "Now?" I looked at Rebecca, who nodded slightly. "Now I'm giving you a choice." I pulled out one final set of documents. "Option 1. You repay every dollar you owe me, the $607,000 in documented loans. I'll give you reasonable terms, 5-year payment plan, reasonable interest. You'll have to liquidate assets, downsize your lives, actually learn to live within your means. But you'll maintain your independence, your dignity, such as it is." I slid the papers across. "Option 2. I forgive all the debt, all of it, every dollar." Hope flared in my mother's eyes. "You do that?" "I would. On one condition." I leaned forward. "You attend family therapy, all of you, once a week, for a year, with a therapist I choose. And you do the work. The real work of understanding how you treated me, why it was wrong, and how to actually be a family that sees each other, values each other, and doesn't just take from each other." "And if we refuse both options?" my father asked stiffly. "Then I proceed with legal action to collect the debts. I file liens against your properties. I pursue collection through the courts. I make all of this public, the loans, the payments, the financial abuse of keeping me in the dark about my own inheritance. I let the whole world see what kind of family the Chens really are." Rebecca added, her voice professional and cold, "And just to be clear, if you choose option 3, the legal route, you will lose. The documentation is airtight. You'll end up paying the debt plus legal fees, court costs, and dealing with the public embarrassment. It's the worst of all possible outcomes." "This is blackmail," my father said. "No," I corrected. "This is consequences. Blackmail would be if I was threatening to reveal something that wasn't true, or that you hadn't actually done. I'm simply giving you choices about how to handle the very real debt you very really owe me." Silence fell over the conference room. Outside, I could hear traffic, voices, the normal sounds of a city going about its business while my family's world fell apart. Finally, my mother spoke. "The therapy. Would you Would you be there? Yes, that's the point. We'd all be there, working on this together, or not at all. And you'd forgive $600,000, every penny. She looked at my father, then at Marcus and Diane. I think we should do it. The therapy. Robert, we should do it. You can't be serious, my father said. Sit in a room with some therapist, spilling family business, being lectured about our parenting. Our parenting was clearly deficient if our daughter felt like she had to be invisible for us to be stable. My mother interrupted. And I'd never heard her speak to him like that before. Sharp. Clear. Definitive. I vote for the therapy, Diane said quietly. Mom's right. We failed Camille. We failed Doll as a family. If there's a chance to fix it. Marcus was silent for a long moment, then nodded. Fine. Therapy. But I want it on record that I think this is manipulative as hell. Noted, I said dryly. Dad? My father sat rigid, his pride warring with his desperation. Finally, he gave a single curt nod. Excellent, Rebecca said, pulling out contracts. Then let's make it official. These agreements stipulate the terms. Weekly therapy for 1 year, full participation from all parties, and upon successful completion, forgiveness of all debt owed to Miss Chen. And if we don't complete the year, Marcus asked, then the debt becomes immediately due, and we proceed with collection actions. Rebecca said simply. One by one, they signed. My mother first, her hand shaking, then Diane, then Marcus, his signature angry and jagged. Finally, my father, each letter of his name written with visible reluctance. When it was done, Whitmore collected the documents. I'll file these with the court and distribute copies to all parties. I stood, gathering my things. My family remained seated, looking shell-shocked. First session is Tuesday at 10 a.m., I said. I'll send you the address. Don't be late. I turned to leave, Rebecca following. Camille, my mother called. I paused at the door. I'm sorry, she said, her voice broken. I'm so sorry we didn't see you. I looked back at her, at all of them, sitting in that conference room with the weight of their mistakes finally visible. I know you are, Nda said softly. Now you get to prove it. And then I walked out, into the bright morning sun, feeling lighter than I had in years. The first therapy session was exactly as uncomfortable as I'd anticipated. Dr. Sarah Kim had been my personal therapist for 3 years. She'd helped me process my family dynamics, understand my patterns of invisibility, and recognize that I'd been enabling the very behavior that hurt me. When I'd asked if she'd be willing to take on my family as clients, with the understanding that this was unprecedented and ethically complex, she'd considered it carefully before agreeing. It's unusual, she'd said, but not unheard of. And given the circumstances, I think I can help. But, Camille, you need to understand, this won't be easy. They're going to resist. They're going to get defensive, and you're going to have to hear things about yourself that might be difficult. I know, but I'm ready. Now, sitting in Kim's spacious office in a circle of chairs, I wasn't entirely sure I'd been honest about that. My father sat with his arms crossed, his face set in an expression of barely contained hostility. My mother perched on the edge of her seat, wringing her hands. Marcus slouched like a teenager forced into detention. Diane looked genuinely anxious, her eyes darting between family members. Dr. Kim sat calmly, her notepad in her lap, her expression professionally neutral. "Thank you all for coming," she began. "I know this isn't where any of you want to be, but you're here, which is a start. Let's establish some ground rules. First, everything said in this room is confidential, unless someone poses an immediate danger to themselves or others. Second, we speak respectfully. No name-calling, no yelling. Third, everyone gets to speak without interruption. Understood?" Reluctant nods all around. "Good. Now, let's start with the obvious question. Camille, why don't you tell your family why you wanted to do this?" I took a breath. "Because I've been invisible in this family for 28 years. And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of being overlooked, underestimated, and taken for granted. I'm tired of sacrificing myself for people who wouldn't do the same for me." "That's not fair," Marcus interjected. "We didn't know. You didn't want to know." I cut him off. "There's a difference, and that's what we're here to figure out. Why you didn't want to know. Why it was easier to believe I was struggling than to actually ask me about my life." Dr. Kim turned to my parents. "Robert, Linda, what's your reaction to what Camille just said?" My mother spoke first, her voice trembling. I think she's right. I think we made assumptions. We saw what we wanted to see, and we didn't question it because it fit the story we'd already told ourselves about who Camille was." "And what story was that?" Dr. Kim asked gently. "That she was the artistic one, the dreamer, the one who needed more time to figure things out." My mother wiped her eyes. It was easier than admitting we didn't really know our own daughter. My father shifted uncomfortably. "I don't think this is productive. Rehashing the past, blaming people for misunderstandings. Dad," I said quietly, "you tried to steal my inheritance." The words hung in the air like a physical presence. "I didn't steal anything," my father said defensively. "That money was from my mother. It was family money." "It was my money," I said, my voice rising despite my intention to stay calm. "Grandmother left it to me, specifically to me, with specific conditions, and you knew that, and you convinced the family lawyer to withhold it because you wanted access to it." "I wanted to protect you." "Bullshit." The word came out harder than I intended. "You wanted to protect your access to money you thought you could eventually claim. You wanted to keep me dependent, keep me small, keep me in the role of the daughter who needed saving." Dr. Kim intervened. "Robert, I want you to try something. Instead of defending your actions, I want you to consider how they felt from Camille's perspective. Can you do that?" My father was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, his face crumpled. "I didn't think of it that way. I thought I was being practical, managing family resources." "You thought you were managing my resources?" I corrected. "Resources that were never yours to manage." "Mr. Chen," Dr. Kim said, "what do you think was really going on? Why did you feel entitled to make decisions about Camille's inheritance?" Another long silence. Then, quietly, "Because she's the youngest. Because she was always the quiet one. Because it was easy to overlook her, to think she didn't need as much or deserve as much because she wasn't as loud about her needs. It was the most honest thing I'd ever heard my father say. And now, Dr. Kim pressed, now that you know who she really is, what she's built, what she's capable of. My father looked at me, really looked at me, maybe for the first time in my life. Now I feel like I don't know my own daughter. And I'm realizing that's my fault, not hers. My mother reached over and took his hand. They sat like that for a moment, united in their failure. Marcus, Dr. Kim turned to my brother. You've been very quiet. What are you thinking? Marcus uncrossed his arms. I'm thinking that I'm a selfish asshole who used his little sister like an ATM and never once said thank you. The bluntness of it surprised me. I'm thinking that when Camille paid off that crypto loan, I should have been grateful. Instead, I just took it for granted. Like it was something she was supposed to do. He looked at me. I'm sorry, Camille. I'm really fucking sorry. Why did you take it for granted? Dr. Kim asked. What made it feel like something she was supposed to do? Marcus thought about it. Because that's how it always was with Camille. She was always just there, in the background, handling things. We joked about her being broke, about her not having her life together. But the weird thing is, stuff around her always worked out. Stuff always got handled. We just never connected the dots. Because connecting the dots would mean acknowledging her, Dr. Kim said. Yeah, exactly. Diane spoke up, her voice thick with emotion. I did the same thing. When I was going through my divorce, Camille set up that trust fund. And I remember thinking, oh, that's nice of her. Like she'd brought me a casserole or something. I didn't think about where the money came from or what it cost her. I just took it. Why? Dr. Kim asked. Because she never made it seem like a big deal. She never asked for anything in return. She never made me feel obligated. Diane looked at me with swimming eyes. She just gave, and I just took. And I told myself it was okay because she seemed okay with it. I wasn't okay with it, I said softly. I was performing okay with it. There's a difference. The sessions continued, week after week. Some were harder than others. There were tears, anger, defensive outbursts, and painful silences. But slowly, incrementally, things began to shift. In week 3, my father admitted that he'd always felt threatened by smart, capable women. A pattern that started with his mother, who'd built the family's initial wealth while he'd spent it. He'd unconsciously replicated that dynamic by diminishing me. In week 5, Marcus talked about how he'd been raised to believe success meant being loud, visible, saw and dominant. Traits he associated with masculinity and worth. Camille's quiet competence didn't fit his framework for success, so he'd dismissed it as non-success. In week 8, my mother broke down completely, admitting that she'd seen herself in me, the quiet one, the one who adapted, the one who made herself small. And instead of protecting me from that fate, she'd unconsciously encouraged it because it was familiar. In week 12, Diane revealed that she'd resented me my entire childhood. Not for anything I'd done, but because I'd been Grandmother Eleanor's favorite. When Grandmother died, Diane had felt relief that I'd lost my advocate. She'd never examined that feeling until now. We didn't solve everything. We didn't become a perfect family. but we became a more honest one. And for me, that was enough. The final session fell on a Thursday in late November, almost exactly 1 year after my mother's birthday party. Dr. Kim began by asking each person to share what they'd learned over the past year. What had changed, what they were still working on. My father went first. I've learned that I confused control with care. I thought managing everyone's life meant I loved them. What it really meant was I didn't trust them or myself enough to let go. He looked at me. Camille, I'm still learning how to see you as you are, not as I assumed you were. It's harder than I thought it would be. But I'm trying. My mother. I've learned that I sacrificed my daughters to keep the peace with my husband. That I chose comfort over courage. And that the cost of that choice was knowing my own children. She reached for my hand. I'm sorry it took so long to really see you. I'm grateful I still have the chance. Marcus. I've learned I'm entitled as hell. He laughed, but it was genuine. Seriously though, I've learned that I measured success by noise level, by visibility, and I completely missed that the quietest person in the room was actually the strongest. He shrugged. I'm working on being less of a dick. It's a process. Diane. I've learned that jealousy is poison, that comparing yourself to others destroys the chance for real connection, and that the person I resented for being grandmother's favorite was actually the person who saved me when my life fell apart. She smiled at me. I'm learning how to be a sister instead of a competitor. Then it was my turn. I've learned, I said slowly, that invisibility was a choice I made. Not consciously, but a choice nonetheless. I learned early that being quiet meant being safe. That not being seen meant not being criticized. But it also meant not being known. I looked around the circle. I've spent this year learning how to be visible, how to take up space, how to say no without guilt and yes without resentment, how to be part of a family without sacrificing myself for it. And, Dr. Kim prompted gently, and I've learned that forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about deciding that someone's worst moment doesn't define them forever. That people can change if they're willing to do the work. I paused. You've all done the work, we've all done the work. And I'm grateful for that. Dr. Kim smiled. I think that's a good place to end. You've completed the year. You've fulfilled the terms of your agreement. The question now is, what comes next? What do you want to come next? My mother asked me. I thought about it. I want a family where I don't have to be invisible to be safe, where I don't have to hide my success to avoid resentment, where we can be honest with each other, even when it's hard. I want that too, my father said. I want to know my daughter, the real one, not the one I invented in my head. Can we start over? Marcus asked. Not like pretend the past didn't happen, but actually start building something new? I think we already have, I said. 2 weeks later, I threw a party. Not a big one, just my immediate family, Rebecca, Dr. Kim, Gerald Whitmore, and a few friends from work. We gathered at my real apartment, the penthouse they'd never seen, in the life they'd never known I had. My mother walked in and stopped in the doorway, her hand over her mouth. Camille, this is home, I finished. This is my home, my real home. She walked through the space slowly. taking in the artwork, the furniture, the floor-to-ceiling windows with their impossible views. It's beautiful. You're beautiful. I mean, your life is beautiful. I just... She trailed off, overwhelmed. My father was quieter, but I could see him processing it, recalculating his understanding of who I was, what I'd built, what I'd hidden. We ate dinner, catered by a restaurant I could actually afford, served on dishes I'd actually bought for myself, and talked, really talked, about my company, my work, my plans for the future, about their plans too, now that they were learning to live within their means. My father had closed his struggling business and taken a job consulting for another company. The pay was less, but the stress was manageable. My mother had started volunteering at an arts nonprofit, finding purpose outside of maintaining appearances. Marcus had actually started his own small business, a food truck of all things, and was working 18-hour days to make it succeed. Diane was in graduate school, finally pursuing the degree she'd always wanted to. They were, in other words, finding out who they actually were when they weren't performing well they didn't have. After dinner, as everyone was having coffee and dessert, my father asked to speak with me privately. We went out to the balcony, the city lights spreading below us like a carpet of stars. "I've been carrying this around," he said, withdrawing an envelope from his jacket. "It's from your grandmother. Another letter. I found it when I was going through her papers after she died, and I kept it. I told myself I was protecting you. But the truth is, I was protecting myself." I took the envelope. It was addressed to my father in Eleanor's handwriting. "You should read it," he said, "and then decide if you want to share it with me." I opened it carefully. "My dear Robert, if you're reading this, I am gone. And I need you to understand something about the choices I've made regarding Camille. I love you. You are my son, and that will never change. But you are also like your father, charming, confident, and completely incapable of living within your means. I watched your father bankrupt our family twice before I learned to hide money from him. I've watched you start down the same path. I cannot change you, but I can protect Camille from the consequences of who you are. The trust I've established for her is not a rejection of you. It's a recognition that she will need resources you cannot provide, protection you cannot offer, and space you will not give her unless she takes it herself. Please, Robert, let her have this. Let her have the chance to be herself without carrying the weight of this family's financial chaos. Let her be free in what you and I never were. If you try to take this from her, you will lose her. Maybe not immediately, but eventually. She will disappear into her own life, and you will be left wondering where your daughter went. Don't make that mistake. Love her enough to let her go. And maybe, if you do, she'll choose to stay. With all my love, Mother." I read it twice, tears streaming down my face. My father was crying too. She knew what I was, what I'd do, and she tried to protect both of us. "She did protect us," I said softly. "She protected me with the trust. And she protected you by warning you. You just didn't listen." "I'm listening now." He looked at me. "Camille, I can't change the past. I can't undo the years I didn't see you. But I'm asking, I'm begging, for the chance to know you now. The real you. the you that I was too blind to see. I thought about my grandmother's warning, about how trying to take from me would mean losing me, about how I'd already been prepared to walk away completely, to build a life where this family was nothing but a painful memory. But that's not what happened. They'd done the work. They'd shown up, week after week, and faced themselves. Faced what they'd done to me and to each other. They'd earned the chance. Okay, I said. Okay, Dad, let's try. He pulled me into a hug, and for the first time in my adult life, it felt real. Not performative. Not for show. Just a father holding his daughter and both of them crying for all the years they'd lost. When we went back inside, the party had moved to the living room. Someone had turned on music. Marcus was showing Rebecca photos from his food truck's opening day. Diane was laughing at something Dr. Kim said. My mother was standing at the windows, looking out at the city with a soft smile. I stood in the doorway, watching them. My family, broken and repaired, imperfect and honest, finally seeing each other. Rebecca came over, 2 wine glasses in hand. She offered me one. So, she said, clinking her glass against mine. How does it feel? How does what feel? Being seen? I thought about about the party a year ago, where I'd been mocked and dismissed, about the weeks of silence and panic that followed, about the year of therapy and tears and painful honesty, about standing in this apartment, in this life, with these people who finally knew me. It feels, I said slowly, like coming home to a place I've never been before. Rebecca smiled. That's the best kind of home. The party continued around us. At one point, Marcus raised his glass and called for a toast. To Camille, he said. And everyone turned to look at me. The quiet one. The invisible one. The broke one, he grinned. Who was actually none of those things? Who was actually the strongest person in this family? Who had every reason to walk away and instead gave us a chance to be better? To Camille, everyone echoed. I raised my glass and felt the weight of their attention. Not the mocking attention from a year ago, but real attention. The kind that comes from actually seeing someone. To family, I said. The one you're born into and the one you choose to build. We drank. And in that moment, surrounded by the people who'd hurt me and were learning to love me, in the home I'd built for myself, in the life I'd created, from nothing but determination and silence and the belief that I deserved better, I felt something I'd never felt before. I felt whole. Epilogue. 1 year later, I'm writing this from my grandmother's grave. It's a quiet spot in the old cemetery on the hill, shaded by oak trees and overlooking the valley. I come here sometimes when I need to think, or when I want to tell her things. Today, I have a lot to tell her. Meridian just signed our biggest contract yet, I say, tracing my fingers over her headstone. We're restructuring a Fortune 500 company. The retainer alone is more than Dad made in his best year. The wind rustles through the leaves above me. The family's doing well. Dad's learning how to work for someone else instead of always trying to be in charge. Mom's actually happy. I think, for the first time in years, she started painting again. Did you know she used to paint? I didn't either. I lean back against the headstone. looking up at the sky through the branches. Marcus's food truck is actually succeeding. Can you believe it? He works harder than I've ever seen him work. And Diane finished her master's degree. She's teaching now. She's good at it. A bird lands nearby, watching me with curious black eyes. We had dinner last week. All of us. At their house. They had to downsize, sell the big place. They live in a normal house now, in a normal neighborhood. And you know what? They seem happier, less stressed, more real. I pull out the letter she wrote me, now carefully preserved in a protective sleeve, and hold it up to the light. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for knowing I'd need protecting. Thank you for giving me permission to put myself first. I pause, feeling the emotion rise in my throat. But also, thank you for being wrong about one thing. You said if Dad tried to take from me, I'd lose him. That I'd disappear into my own life and never come back. You were preparing me to walk away completely. I traced the words on the page. But I didn't have to. They're not perfect. God knows we still have hard days. But they're trying. They're really trying. And I got my family back. Not the one I grew up with, but a better one. An honest one. I stand, brushing grass from my jeans. So I guess what I'm saying is, the trust gave me freedom. The therapy gave us honesty. And somehow, both of those things together gave me something I never expected. I press my hand to the cool granite of her headstone. They gave me hope. I drive back to the city, with the windows down, my hair whipping in the wind, feeling lighter than I have in years. My phone buzzes with notifications. Messages from my assistant about tomorrow's meetings. From Rebecca confirming our lunch date. From Dr. Kim checking in. We still have sessions, just monthly now instead of weekly, and just me, working on my own patterns and growth. And then, at the bottom of the list, a message from my family group chat. A thing that didn't exist a year ago and that now pings almost daily with mundane updates and bad jokes and occasional requests for advice. Mum. Family dinner Sunday. My place. I'm making that chicken thing Camille likes. Dad. I'll bring wine. Good wine this time, not the cheap stuff. Marcus. Can I bring someone? Met a girl at the farmer's market. Diane. The twins want to know if Aunt Camille can help with their business plan presentation. They're doing a school project. Mum, Camille, you coming? I pull over to the side of the road to type my response because I've learned not to text and drive, even for family. Me, I'll be there, looking forward to it. And I mean it. Sunday arrives with unseasonably warm weather for late November. I drive to my parents' house, the smaller one. The one they can actually afford. In a neighborhood where people know each other's names and kids ride bikes in the street. It's so different from the showcase property they used to have. No grand entrance, no circular driveway, no grounds that required a landscaping crew. Just a modest 3-bedroom ranch with a yard that my father mows himself now. I park on the street and sit for a moment, looking at the house. Through the front window I can see movement. My mother in the kitchen, my father setting the table. It's domestic and ordinary and real. Last year at this time I was invisible. I was the broke one. I was the disappointment. Now I'm the one they call when they need advice. The one whose success they brag about to their friends. The one they actually see. The transformation hasn't been perfect. There are still moments when old patterns surface. When my father tries to tell me what I should do with my business. When my mother makes assumptions about my life without asking. When Marcus reverts to treating me like his kid sister instead of a peer. But now, when those moments happen, we talk about them. We acknowledge them. We course correct. It's not the family I grew up in. It's better. I grab the bottle of wine I brought. Actually expensive wine because I can't afford it. And because I'm done pretending I can't. And head inside. The door swings open before I can knock. Marcus, grinning, holding the hand of a woman I don't recognize. Camille. This is Jessica. Jessica. This is my sister, Zald, the one I told you about. The financial genius, Jessica asks, smiling warmly. I laugh. I don't know about genius, but I do okay. She's being modest, Marcus says, and there's genuine pride in his voice. My sister's basically a superhero. Saved our entire family from financial ruin while we were too stupid to notice. Marcus, I start, uncomfortable with the hero worship I sometimes catch in his voice now. No, it's true. You did. And I'm not going to stop telling people about it just because it makes you uncomfortable. He grins. You're stuck being impressive now. Deal with it. We move into the house. My mother emerges from the kitchen, flour on her apron, her face flushed from cooking. Camille, perfect timing. Can you help me with the sauce? I can't get the seasoning right. In the old days, she would never have asked for my help, would never have admitted she needed help with anything domestic. Now she asks freely, treating me like an equal rather than a child. In the kitchen, as I taste the sauce and add herbs, she says quietly, Your father has something he wants to show you. After dinner, he's been working on it all week. Working on what? She smiles mysteriously. You'll see. Dinner is chaotic in the best way. Diane's twins, now 12, and at that age, where everything is simultaneously hilarious and embarrassing, dominate the conversation with their business plan presentation for school. They're proposing a dog walking service for the neighborhood, complete with projected revenue, marketing strategy, and operational logistics. So we figured we could start with 5 dogs. Emma explains, her spreadsheet pulled up on her iPad, and scale up to 15 within 6 months if we hire other kids to help. And our profit margin, Ethan adds, is projected at 40% after expenses for supplies and insurance. I'm impressed despite myself. You've thought about insurance? Aunt Camille, we're not amateurs, Emma says with exaggerated seriousness. We know about liability. Everyone laughs, but I catch Diane's eye across the table. She mouths thank you at me. Because this, the twins' business acumen, their confidence with financial planning, this came from our sessions together over the past year. From me teaching them what I know, treating them like capable young people instead of just kids. From me being visible in their lives in a way I never was before. After dinner, my father stands and clears his throat. Before we get to dessert, I have something to share. Camille, this is for you. He hands me a leather portfolio, similar to the ones that have featured so prominently in this story. But this one is clearly handmade, crafted with care. Inside is a document, handwritten, each page carefully lettered in my father's neat script. The history of Camille Marie Chen, I read aloud, a father's account. I look up at him, confused. I've been writing it, he says, his voice rough with emotion. Everything I missed. Everything I should have seen. Every moment I overlooked or dismissed or failed to acknowledge. It's not complete. I'm only up to your college graduation. But I wanted you to have it. To know that I see you now. That I'm trying to see all the parts I missed. I flip through the pages. There are sections titled, "The Scholarship I Didn't Celebrate," "The Business She Built While I Wasn't Watching," "The Loans She Made That I Called Mistakes." Each section is several pages long, filled with his reflections, his regrets, his newfound understanding. My hands are shaking. Dad, this is... It's not enough, he interrupts. It will never be enough, but it's something. It's my promise that I'm trying, that I'll keep trying. I stand and hug him, this man who hurt me so deeply and is working so hard to be better. Thank you, I whisper. Thank you for seeing me now. Thank you for letting me, he whispers back. Later, after dessert and coffee and too much wine, after Jessica and Diane's ex-husband, who showed up to pick up the twins and stayed for pie, and various neighbors who popped by have all gone home, I find myself alone in the backyard with my mother. We sit on the back steps, watching fireflies blink in the gathering darkness. Are you happy? She asks suddenly. I think about it, about my company, my apartment, my life, about this family that broke and reformed into something different, something honest. Yes, I say, I think I am. Are you? She nods slowly. I am. More than I've been in years. It's strange. We have so much less than we used to. Smaller house, smaller budget, smaller life. But it feels bigger somehow, more real, because you're not performing anymore, I say gently. You're just living, is that what we were doing, performing? All the time. For each other, for neighbors, for yourselves. She's quiet for a moment. Then, I'm sorry I made you perform too. I'm sorry I didn't see that you were struggling to fit into a role that didn't fit. I'm sorry I let you believe I was someone I wasn't. No. She turns to me, her face serious. No, Camille. That's not on you. You were protecting yourself. You were doing what you needed to do to survive in a family that didn't make space for who you really were. I'm the one who should have made that space. I'm your mother. That was my job. Tears are running down both our faces now. I see you now, she says fiercely. My brilliant, strong, capable daughter, who built an empire while we mocked her for being broke. Who saved us all while we complained that she wasn't helping. Who gave us chance after chance to be better. I see you, Camille. And I'm so proud of you. And I'm so sorry it took me this long. We hold each other on those back steps, crying and laughing and healing in the way that families do when they finally stop pretending and start being real. I drive home late that night. My father's portfolio on the passenger seat. My heart full in a way it hasn't been since I was a child. Since before I learned that being invisible was safer than being seen. At a stoplight, I pull out my phone and take a photo of the portfolio, then open my social media. Something I rarely use, but tonight feels like a night for documentation. I post the photo with a caption. 1 year ago, I was mocked at a family party for being broke and not contributing. Today my father gave me this, his written acknowledgement of everything he missed, everything I built, everything I am. This is what healing looks like. Not perfect, not easy, but real. To anyone out there who feels invisible, you're not. You're just surrounded by people who haven't learned how to see yet. Keep building your life. Keep being yourself. And if they eventually learn to see you, wonderful. If they don't, you'll have built something beautiful anyway. You're enough. You've always been enough, whether they see it or not. I post it and put the phone away, not caring about likes or comments or responses. The light turns green. I drive. 3 weeks later, I'm in my office when James buzzes through. "You have a visitor. Says it's personal." I frown. "Who?" "Won't give a name. Just says you'll want to see them." Curious, I agree. The woman who walks into my office is elderly, impeccably dressed, carrying herself with the kind of quiet authority that comes from a lifetime of knowing exactly who you are. "Miss Chen," she says, extending her hand. "My name is Margaret Morrison. I was your grandmother Eleanor's best friend." I stand quickly, shaking her hand. "Mrs. Morrison, I didn't know." Few people did. Eleanor and I were friends for 63 years. We met in college and remained close until she passed. She settles into the chair across from my desk. "I've been following your situation. Gerald Whitmore is my nephew. He told me what happened, the trust, your family, everything." I see. "I wanted to meet you because Eleanor talked about you constantly. My Camille," she'd say. "The one who sees things, the one who'll be okay." She knew, even when you were small, that you were different, special. My throat tightens. I wish I'd known her better. "She knew you better than you think. She watched you carefully. Took notes, even." Mrs. Morrison opens her purse and withdraws a small leather journal. She kept this, her observations about her grandchildren. "She asked me to give it to you when I felt the time was right." She slides the journal across my desk. "I think the time is right." After she leaves, I open the journal with trembling hands. The first entry is dated October 1997. I would have been 3 years old. Camille is watching again. She does that. Watches. While Marcus and Diane demand attention, she observes. I wonder what she sees. I wonder what she's learning from all that silence. I flip through the pages. Years of observations, small moments, captured insights. Age 7. Camille helped her mother clean up after Diane's birthday party without being asked. Linda didn't notice. Robert didn't notice. But I noticed. This child gives without expecting recognition. I must ensure she learns that she deserves recognition anyway. Age 10. Camille won the school science fair. Her project on renewable energy was remarkable, sophisticated beyond her years. Her parents attended but left early for Marcus's soccer game. They missed her acceptance speech. She pretended it didn't matter. It matters. Age 15. Camille has learned to make herself small, to take up less space, to need less. This is survival, but it's also tragedy. I'm setting up the trust. She'll need resources they won't give her. She'll need freedom they won't understand. Age 18. Camille got into Stanford, full scholarship. She told me before she told her parents. "They won't care," she said. She was right. They said, "That's nice," and changed the subject. How do you parent a child and not see their brilliance? How do you look at her and see nothing? The entries continue, each one a small window into how my grandmother saw me when no one else did. The final entry is dated 3 months before her death. I'm dying. The doctors confirmed it today. I have perhaps 6 months. I'm not afraid of death, but I'm terrified of leaving Camille unprotected. Robert will try to take the trust money. I know my son. He'll convince himself it's for the family, but it's really for him. I've written her a letter. I've built every protection I can into the trust. But I can't protect her from invisibility. I can't force her family to see her. So I'm leaving her something else. Money, yes, but more importantly, permission. Permission to walk away if she needs to. Permission to put herself first. Permission to build a life that doesn't include them if they refuse to include her. My brilliant girl. My quiet observer. My Camille Serre. I see you. I've always seen you. And I hope that's enough. I close the journal and cry. Not sad tears exactly. Grateful tears. Overwhelmed tears. The tears of someone who was seen by someone who mattered, even if she didn't fully realize it at the time. I pull out my phone and call Rebecca. I need you to help me set up a foundation, I say when she answers. Okay. What kind of foundation? For invisible people. For the kids who get overlooked. The ones who are brilliant and capable and strong but who exist in families that don't know how to see them. I want to give them what my grandmother gave me. Resources, protection, and permission to build lives that are theirs. Rebecca is quiet for a moment. Then, "That's beautiful, Camille. Let's do it." 2 years later, the Eleanor Chen Foundation for Overlooked Achievement launches on what would have been my grandmother's 91st birthday. We provide scholarships, business grants, emergency funding, and support services for young people who demonstrate excellence but lack family support or recognition. The application doesn't ask about grades or test scores. It asks, "Tell us about a time you achieved something important and no one noticed." The responses break my heart and restore my faith in humanity simultaneously. I taught myself to code and built an app that my school now uses for scheduling. My parents think it's a hobby. It made 15,000 last year. I'm raising my 3 younger siblings because my mum works 3 jobs. I have a 4.0 GPA. My teachers know. My family doesn't notice because they expect it. I wrote a novel. It's good. Like, really good. I won a national competition. My dad said that's nice and went back to watching TV. We fund 50 students the first year, 100 the second. By year 3, we're up to 200, with a waiting list of qualified applicants. Each recipient gets more than money. They get mentorship. They get a network. They get what I got from my grandmother, someone who sees them. The foundation's board includes my entire family. My father, who now understands what it means to overlook someone. My mother, who's learning to notice. Marcus and Diane, who remember what it was like to be the seen children and are working to amplify the invisible ones. We meet quarterly to review applications and plan strategy. These meetings are nothing like our family gatherings used to be. They're focused, purposeful, honest. At one meeting, My father reads an application from a 17-year-old girl who's been supporting her family financially through freelance graphic design, while her parents tell people she doesn't do much. His voice breaks while reading it. This could have been you. This was you. Yes, I say gently, but now she'll have help. Now she'll have someone who sees her. That's the point, Dad. We can't change what happened, but we can keep it from happening to someone else. He nods, wiping his eyes. Then let's fund her. Full scholarship. Business mentorship. Everything. We vote unanimously. I'm sharing this story. All of it. The humiliation and the revenge and the healing. Because I want invisible people to know something. Being overlooked doesn't mean you're not remarkable. Being dismissed doesn't mean you're not valuable. Being mocked doesn't mean you're not worthy. Sometimes you're invisible because the people around you have bad vision. They're looking for the wrong things. They're measuring success by the wrong metrics. They're seeing the performance instead of the person. That's their failure, not yours. My family couldn't see me for 28 years. But I was there the whole time. Building, growing, becoming, creating an empire while they assumed I was struggling, supporting them while they mocked me for not contributing. I was never the broke one. I was never the failure. I was never the disappointment. I was just invisible to people who'd forgotten how to see. And when I finally showed them the truth, when I pulled back the curtain and revealed everything I'd built, everything I'd been, everything they'd missed, it destroyed their world and rebuilt ours. Not perfectly, not completely, but honestly. And honest is better than perfect any day. I'm writing this final section from my office, the one with the view of the city. In the building where I built something real while my family thought I was building nothing. On my desk, my grandmother's journal, my father's portfolio, a photo of the first 50 foundation recipients, and a new letter I'm writing to whoever reads this. Dear invisible person, I see you. I see you working hard while people assume you're lazy. I see you achieving things while people expect you to fail. I see you holding everything together while people think you're falling apart. I see you being the foundation while people treat you like furniture. And I want you to know, you deserve better. You deserve to be seen. You deserve to be valued. You deserve to have people acknowledge what you're doing, what you're building, what you're sacrificing. But if they can't see you, if they won't see yourself, know yourself, value yourself, build something so undeniable that they'll have to acknowledge it eventually. And if they don't, build it anyway, for yourself, because you deserve to live in a life you created, whether anyone else notices or not. Stop paying the bills of people who think you're broke. Stop supporting the foundations of families who think you're unstable. Stop being invisible to people who refuse to look. Walk away if you need to. Stay if you want to. But make it your choice, not theirs. You are not the broke one. You are not the failure. You are not the disappointment. You are the one who sees clearly, while everyone else is looking in the wrong direction. And that's not a weakness. That's a superpower. Use it. With love and recognition. Someone who was invisible too. I sign it, seal it, and add it to the packet every foundation recipient receives. Then I turn back to my computer and get to work. Because this, the seeing, the supporting, the transforming of invisible people into visible ones, This is my purpose, my calling, my grandmother's legacy, and my life's work. At the family party 2 years ago, my father toasted too, the one who always shows up without money. He was wrong. I was the one who showed up with everything. They just couldn't see it. But now they can. And more importantly, now I can see it too. And that makes all the difference. The broke one stopped paying. The invisible one became visible. The disappointed daughter became the family's salvation. The one they overlooked became the one they couldn't ignore. And in the process, everyone learned the most important lesson. The quietest person in the room is often holding everything together. Don't mock them for what you think they lack. Thank them for what they've been giving before they decide to stop. This story is dedicated to everyone who's ever felt invisible in their own family, to everyone who's given more than they've received, to everyone who's been mocked for the very things that were keeping everyone else afloat. You're not alone. You're not wrong. You're not the problem. You're just surrounded by people who don't know how to see yet. Keep building, keep growing, keep being remarkable. And when you're ready, when the time is right, show them the truth. But do it for yourself, not for them. Because you deserve to be seen, whether they're looking or not.